Good morning and welcome to the next episode of our podcast,
where we drink tea and navigate the balance between school and personal life.
I'm Sophia Safe.
And I'm Sophia Curry.
And this is Sip and Spill.
Back to the Tea Journal.
The topic we'll be touching on today is how COVID-19 changed the brain for today's adolescents.
You want to start?
Sure. So we can start by talking about how to understand the adolescent brain before COVID. And so when we talk about adolescents, we're talking about teenagers in our day-to-day lives. So people that are in high school and maybe like still in 8th grade at this point.
Mm-hmm. It's also important for me and Sophia to know when COVID hit, we were only in 5th and 6th grade.
Yes. And so the people that we're talking about specifically might have been in like 3rd to 7th grade?
Probably.
So like I said, we're going to start by understanding this brain before COVID. So during adolescence, the brain has high plasticity, which means that this teen brain is still wiring itself, especially in areas involving decision-making, emotions, and rewards.
Key brain regions still developing would be the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, hippocampus, and salience networks.
And this matters because these areas weren't finished maturing. And that means that teens are more vulnerable to the sudden stress and isolation of what happened during the pandemic.
So to touch on this, I think this is important because I think a lot of teens and just really anybody in general experience a lot of shifts within their mental health.
Absolutely.
Like they definitely, some people if we think back to last week's episode 7, when we talked with Natalie and Weema, we touched on a little bit about how we were affected personally by COVID. And, Weema had said that was a time of really good personal growth for her.
Yes.
And I kind of said the exact opposite.
Exactly. Weema was talking about how she felt isolated already when it came to who she was with in school, and she felt different. And so COVID allowed her to find who she really was on her own without having to feel that social anxiety.
And also accept herself and come to terms with her own, personality traits.
Absolutely.
But moving into, which is a good segue, into emotional health during the pandemic, stress doubled. So rates of anxiety and depression rose sharply during 2020 and 2021.
And then in addition to this, brain wiring predicted vulnerability. So like teens with weaker prefrontal cortex connections reported more sadness and stress than teens with stronger salience networks, which salience, by the way, is the emotion and reward processing circuits. And so these teens with these stronger networks were more resilient.
Mm-hmm. And I think, even if you still had, I think, somewhat of a stronger salience network, you were still I think everybody was still subjective to some sort of depression during that period, because I think it's us as human beings are such social beings.
Absolutely.
Like we're meant to be social in some capacity, that was like a real shock to us to kind of adjust in how we're gonna, move forward and how we communicate with each other in a time like this. And it definitely pushed us to become way dependent on social media. It definitely created a bigger wave of that too.
And forcing us to make online connections with people that we wouldn't have made connections with before.
For sure. And then we can talk about holiday spikes. So during the holidays, emotional distress was worse around December 2020 and May 2021. Periods of isolation and cumulative stress happened during these months.
So especially with the end of May 2021, that was near the end of our 6th grade year.
Yeah.
And so this was after we had been able to have some communication with people, but then went straight back to being isolated. And I feel like it brought a lot of us back into that mindset of being alone again.
Mm-hmm. We were kind of grabbing onto that hope of okay, things are opening back up, it's getting better, and then it kind of moved backwards.
Absolutely.
Although it did, end up moving forward for the following year, and we did end up being able to go back fully in person. I don't know about Sophia. Were you all online?
I was online 3/4 of the year, and then during the last quarter of our 6th grade year, I was in person, and I feel like it made a big difference. I feel like it both spiked my social anxiety and made me feel less alone, if you know what I mean. I feel like when we're isolated, we lose a lot of that social connection, and this is, I think, something a lot of people know. But the impact that it really had on a lot of us is to an extreme level, I think.
Oh, for sure.
I think a lot of us depended on our online relationships and didn't exactly know how to socialize in person anymore.
I also didn't have a phone during COVID.
Neither did I.
So, like, with my friends who did have phones, they were able to still, I think, keep in touch with their friends. But it was definitely a lot harder for me to keep in touch with people. And then just, like, having us personally, just having a big school as it is, like, reconnecting with some people in 6th grade was really hard because if you were a hybrid kid, you know, the first half of the alphabet would be in school one day and the second half would be in school on other days. And it was, you know, weird because you wouldn't see some people that you would be really close to because they would just, even if they were on the same, like we had things called teams, even if they were on the same team as you, you wouldn't see them like physically.
Right. And to elaborate more on the team thing, in middle school, we used to have these little sections of our school would be separated into what Sophia said was teams, and each team would have different teachers, and you would see the same kids every single day.
Yeah, so that just like in itself was kind of isolating, but we can also of course touch more in this in our brutal honesty segment, which I believe we have.
Yep, the other segment that's in this is brutal honesty, and we decided not to add another segment because we thought it was important to share our personal experiences and see if anyone had a similar experience.
Agreed.
And so then we can use this to move on to structural brain changes linked to the lockdowns. So we can start with accelerated cortical thinking, which is specifically where the MRI studies show the typical thinning of the cortex sped up during these lockdowns.
Yeah. There was also a stronger effect in girls. So female adolescents showed more pronounced thinning in certain regions.
And so this means that the brain appeared older than expected, which is a form of accelerated maturation or maturation.
Maturing.
And then this could affect long-term emotional regulation and stress sensitivity. And so I think we also are still seeing this today where all our girls are much more mature than our male counterparts.
And I think that just is bound to happen naturally even without that because, you know, we go through puberty first, and that's just a known fact that girls' brains mature faster than boys. But I think it was even more pronounced during this time.
Absolutely.
That you saw females like exponentially mature.
And I feel like people like us who didn't have that social contact saw a lot of that thinning still to a higher extent, I feel like.
Definitely. And I think we can move into how that kind of affects stress sensitivity and talk about changes in it. So cortisol, which is the stress hormone, post-pandemic teens showed lower total cortisol levels, suggesting burnout or dysregulation from chronic stress.
In addition to this, there was systemic inflammation, where higher levels of C-reactive protein indicated increased inflammation in the body. So it wasn't just like a mental thing. It was also something that we saw in our physical health.
And again, I'd like to note, and I think I talked about this in some episode, I'm not sure which one, but I was talking about how it's always easier to kind of accept something when you're able to attribute it to something more physical and tangible, like if you can see like a test result or something. So I think this also shows how like COVID had such like an extreme effect on our body. Even if we didn't, you know, physically see it, there's still something tangible there that like was tested when you look at these higher levels of C-reactive proteins. But moving into prefrontal cortex activation, there was reduced PCF activation during emotional tasks, meaning the brain was less able to regulate emotions. That's huge, I think, for teens especially.
Because in our day-to-day lives, we have fights with other people, and we have to go through these struggles of finding who we are against the grain of the norm, you know?
Yes.
And so not being able to emotionally regulate is a big deal when it comes to dealing with these changes that come in your day-to-day life.
Even taking COVID out of the equation, we already, I don't want to say struggle with that, but that's still developing for us. So to have a big hit like COVID definitely, I think, stunted some of us. And this is consistent with chronic stress patterns, which is seen in trauma research.
Which kind of indicates that we all went through a sort of trauma when we went through the isolation period of COVID-19.
I think it was definitely traumatizing for some people because, like, especially if you're super social, like, that could have been very traumatizing. And I think for me, it was sort of traumatizing in a way because it took away my ability to kind of, like, have that social growth period with my peers. So, like, coming back into it in 7th grade was like really difficult because some of us, like, I don't want to say we had the mentality of elementary school, but that was our only prior experience. And like 6th grade and that bridge is kind of when everybody was usually maturing. And that was like, we lost that bridge to kind of be able to mature together.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really awkward kind of like walking into the school year. And I think that's probably why we see some like more kid-like behaviors in some of our younger teens now.
Absolutely.
But we can talk about mental health outcomes.
So teens assessed after the shutdowns had higher anxiety, higher depression, and more internalizing symptoms such as sadness, withdrawal, and worry. However, there was actually no major increase in externalizing symptoms such as aggression. And by the way, these effects occurred when groups were matched on income, early life stress, and puberty, which means that COVID itself played a direct role in these mental health outcomes.
So that's big because, again, it shows how, you know, how just impactful it was to us. And I don't even think we kind of thought about it as much because, again, like we said, there was more internalizing symptoms. We didn't see many of those external, like nobody got excessively aggressive.
Absolutely.
No one got like lashing out. It was more like internal feelings that we kind of thought about or kind of experienced.
And then we can move on into the long-term implications of COVID-19. And so in this, there is a possible earlier aging of the brain where pandemic stress may have set teens on a faster trajectory of brain aging, which means, again, like we said before, that there's a higher level of maturation when it comes to these kids that had gone through this isolation in their like extreme developing years.
Yeah. And I think we can talk about, you know, the gender differences in terms of females carrying a more unique long-term risk. And this is due to stronger structural impacts on the cortex. I mean, I think that's huge when you look at the long-term implications, just like breaking up the demographics and kind of what we've seen from everyone. Because like we said, like the risk for future mental health struggles, like the combination of accelerated brain maturation plus chronic stress biomarkers increase the vulnerability to anxiety, depression, and emotional reactivity later in life. And I think a lot of females saw that.
Absolutely.
And it's huge.
Yep. And then we can move on into how teens can recover now in this day and age. And so while we have already been doing this, one of the most important steps is to rebuild that social connection, as isolation was one of the most damaging factors, and supportive relationships help buffer this future stress. And Sophia and I have talked about our support system in multiple episodes throughout this season and the first season, and I feel like this is just pointing back to that need to have a healthy support system.
And I think just the support system gives you so much, and it gives you that social contact, like, but in a safe, supportive environment. And that's huge because when you're rebuilding something, I think it's really important to have a safe environment to do so where you can kind of explore certain things. And that allows you to come to terms with stuff regarding yourself and other people and maybe even family. So again, like that supportive system is huge.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then we can target emotional regulation skills. So because of the prefrontal cortex circuits and them being affected, therapies that strengthen these skills may be especially important.
And this can be something that you do with your therapist where they help you through this, and always contacting a professional is extremely important when it comes to this. But like I was saying, a therapy that might help with this is desensitization therapy, where you expose yourself to these stress-inducing things, and in that you might be able to help rebuild that emotional regulation circuit.
And so that's called desensitization therapy. And I think you see this with a lot of therapists, I think, tend to do this, especially with phobias and like fears, and kind of trying to push them. So like a good example would be like if someone's like afraid to go out or they don't like to go out as much, you know, the therapist might focus on doing small things, like maybe go outside, take a little walk around your neighborhood, and then like, you know, taking those little steps. And I think you can also do that on your own too.
Absolutely.
It's like working out, like you're slowly building a muscle, and then you're slowly building your tolerance up until you're able to do those things. And then you can also monitor stress and sleep. So regulating daily routines can help stabilize your cortisol rhythms.
And then, of course, you can use some support environments. And support environments can be schools, families, and communities. And these environments can create safe places that offer predictability and connection.
This goes again back to what Sophia and I were saying about creating support systems and those supportive relationships, because those safe places, like we just said, offer support and stability and protection in those really, like in those key moments of rebuilding yourself.
And then in addition to this, we saw people lose that feeling of connection and isolation in May of 2021 when they left school, which was one of those support environments. And utilizing that environment now can help you foster that predictability and connection that can help you recover now.
And I think to go further into that, you know, coming back to school was such a unique and odd experience because it was almost like COVID was like a fever dream. So like coming back into it and kind of finding that rhythm, especially when it came like coming back to like a quote normal year again, where we were, you know, all in person, no masks, you know, no like 6 feet apart and ridiculous stuff like that, that we were kind of like, did that really happen? And kind of just like rebuilding that. But like now we have like this added background knowledge, I guess you could call it, like, or this added like just this cultural like shared experience that we all like felt, but we were like, it's so weird to think like that was over because it felt like it was never going to end.
Right. And then now you hear people talk about how I can't believe COVID was 7 years ago.
Oh my God.
And is it actually 7 years now? It's just about 7 years.
It started just about 7 years ago. I'm not gonna make that joke.
But
around 7 years ago. But to think about the fact that it was just even half a decade ago, at least, is crazy.
I mean, because it was such an experience for everyone to go through, and then for it to just, I feel like it ended very abruptly.
It did. I always wondered how it would end. But again, we could go further into this
in
later. So I think our main takeaway would be, you know, obviously through much testing and just like many studies, our bodies as teens and even as people have felt such impactful like events from COVID and carried such a high emotional distress from it. But there was also physical experiences, but also as a result of this, we didn't see any external like symptoms. We saw a lot of more internalization, and I think that makes sense considering the fact that we were very isolated, so we were kind of all left alone with our thoughts.
Not to mention that isolation and being left alone with our thoughts led to increased maturization in especially females during this period.
And I think we can see that, and just it affecting how we deal with stress and kickstarting a higher, you know, spike of anxiety and depression. We can see that with, you know, cortisol levels changing and those impacts. We can also rebuild them and, you know, help focus on how can we come back from long-term implications like future mental health struggles and just, you know, overall like earlier aging of the brain. So we can do this by rebuilding social connections, targeting emotional regulation skills, monitoring our stress and sleep, and then of course creating those supportive environments like we said before.
So that pretty much wraps up our tea journal for this week.
Welcome back to Brutal Honesty.
To recap, Brutal Honesty is where we'll go through our personal stories and anecdotes to supplement what we've talked about already.
We'll also discuss deeper topics within the episode.
For today, we will be discussing our experience with COVID-19.
Okay, so like we said earlier, COVID hit when we were in 5th grade. And then, you know, like the whole weird hybrid and all of that type of schooling was during our first year of middle school, so 6th grade.
Right.
And I know, like we said earlier, like in episode 7, that when we talked like with Natalie and Lima, I was saying, you know, this was a really formative time for us. And we were talking about like, you know, maturing with each other and how I was like, COVID hit and I didn't mature with this one person. So like, I don't really, I don't want to say appreciate, but I don't really enjoy her presence as much as I used to because it was kind of annoying.
Or maybe like not being able to connect as well.
Yeah, definitely not able to connect as well. I know
you talked about in earlier episodes about how you and this friend how we're really close, and when you and a friend grow together, you change together, you get used to their quirks.
Yeah.
And this COVID isolation period led us to not grow with our friends' quirks and thus have possibly different feelings than we had before.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it was like the maturing point just when it landed, because having that maturing point, like, she kind of grew, I think, with some of her other friends because like they matured together. They were in the same grade. So like, but like she moved off to middle school and I was still stuck in elementary school. And so like when she was formally maturing in like middle school, I wasn't maturing with like her quirks. And like I often compare it like to like my one other friend. I would always tell my mom like she wants to play and I want to talk. And I remember being very hyper aware even before COVID of us maturing as kids, like seeing who was more like who was still playing on the playground and like, you know, doing make believe whatever, and who was like standing off to the side, maybe sitting on a bench talking, or like sitting in the grass talking, or playing Foursquare but mostly talking. And I like remember being like, okay, these are the kids who are like, I don't want to say like maturing, like, and they're like higher functioning emotionally, like individuals, but like maturing into that, like, I'm not a kid anymore type mindset. And so I definitely didn't have that with this one friend when she moved on to middle school. So when I, you know, I don't want to say met up with her, but when I ended up in the same place as her in middle school again in 7th grade, I was like, wow, you kind of annoy me. Like, And I realized like I have no desire to be as close with this person as I used to be.
I feel like in this COVID period, we also were exposed to a lot of online things that we weren't really supposed to be exposed to.
Definitely.
And I feel like we talked about in the teacher, that like increased maturization was because of how much we were exposed to online.
And it was just, and the own isolation period, I think, caused me to be alone with my thoughts, caused me to kind of mature some of my thinking processes. So maybe not even just like with things that we've seen or experienced, because even now that still happens outside of COVID. And I think that was bound to happen regardless.
I feel like I somewhat agree with you, but the fact that we had so much time to ourselves and so much time to be online and not socially connecting led us to seek that more than social connection.
Okay, so seeking that. Yeah, I definitely think we seek that more, especially because we relied so heavily on social media and social, like, online stuff, period, to get any form of contact. Like, we both said, like, we didn't have a phone during COVID, but, you know, we still had our computers, like, school computers even, just to, like, that was the first time I ever really got on YouTube and fell down any rabbit holes. And that was like really hard. That was really weird for me.
Agreed.
Because I was not like used to being on YouTube that much. Like, I think back now, because I remember like 3rd, 4th grade, like we have like a school platform called Schoology. And I remember kind of using it, but not really knowing how to use it, because we would use it for like our gifted class. And so everyone would be like, oh, Schoology. Like, okay, yeah, let's go on Schoology. And now literally all our entire lives are on Schoology.
On Schoology. Everything gets submitted through Schoology. I remember having to use our textbooks in elementary school and basically just using an online textbook in high school.
Oh, yeah. And I think that was bound to happen regardless of COVID, but I think COVID definitely accelerated it.
Absolutely.
And our heavy reliance on online assignments, I think definitely came from that, or just like the faster push into online assignments. But also like Zoom and all of those things, like those resources kind of like became more readily available. And we just saw so much more with that.
Do you remember snow days? We don't have snow days anymore.
Yeah, right. We have FID days.
And FID days are flexible instruction days, where I think these grew because of the fact that we can Google Meet now. We can Zoom meet with our teachers, and we don't have to just, you know, stay at home and like stay isolated from everyone, because we have that technology now.
And they can assign things online. Like if they say you need to get up and you need to like check in on Schoology, do your assignment by the end of class time. And if you don't have it done, then that counts as like you're marked as absent. Then like, and it still marks as like a school absence. So like, even though you're sitting at home, like you got to make sure you're on top of your work, like actually doing school.
And I feel like COVID accelerated that. I feel like that might have also been bound to happen, but because of that COVID isolation period and our dependence on technology, the technological growth just had to grow.
Yeah, like we were forced. Like I think we probably by now would have gotten to that point, but I don't think it would have happened as quickly because COVID forced us to learn how to like assign things online.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember like, oh yeah, Schoology, like being one of the only ones in my class who knew how to get on Schoology because
Right.
of like my gifted class, like because no one else used it. Like we would go on our computers to go on like extra math, ST math,
Yeah.
like
That's
like
and ST Math and
application.
Extra Math are these like online math application websites.
Yeah.
Right?
Or like to go like to McGraw-Hill to do some of those assignments. Like they would be like really basic assignments, but they
By these larger companies, not by our own teachers.
Yeah. But like that would be supplemental to what we were doing in school.
Yes.
Or like Go Math. I remember Go Math like sometime
Go
what
Math
we
was
did-
textbooks.
Yeah, we did textbooks, but I know 5th grade I started inputting it my score online, but I don't know if you had us like get online after we finished a paper test because we took a paper test
Right.
to upload it. But yeah, I don't really remember, but I do remember going online and doing something
I think
with
I
the
still
test.
have my Go Math textbook downstairs here.
I definitely have my Go Math textbook somewhere hidden in my house.
Mm-hmm.
But like it was, you saw a crazy shift, but then we can also talk like socially where we saw that shift coming back from COVID
Yes.
was really weird.
Everyone seemed very awkward when we were all first coming back from COVID, I think.
Yeah, and like, well, because we started with hybrid, so I was hybrid all year. You weren't.
No,
right?
I wasn't. Like I said in the teacher class, hybrid a quarter of the year. And hybrid is where throughout the week, one half of the alphabet would come, and then the other half of the alphabet would come during the second half of the week.
And there would be one day where everybody was home.
Mm-hmm.
It was, well, actually, I remember when COVID first started, my neighbor said to me, we're not like we would talk through our window. Like she would like be standing in her backyard and I would sit at my window and have my window open because like I don't like being in a stuffy room. But anyway, she was like, yeah, we're not going back to school. And I was like, what do you mean? Because at first it was supposed to be 2 weeks. Like, it was like, oh, 2 weeks, we'll all be back. Like, ha, ha, ha. But I also remember our teachers being like, take your textbook home just in case we don't come back. And that was really scary.
There was so much about the world that was changing that us as elementary schoolers couldn't really grasp our head around.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I feel like we're completely unaware of what was happening at the time.
Well, no, I don't want to say completely unaware because I remember like looking at like the New York Times map of the COVID spread and being horrified.
Really?
And being like, oh my God. And looking at those numbers go up every single day and like it get redder and redder and redder across the map.
That is scary.
That was like, oh my God, like this is real. And just seeing how many people, and it was a death toll, and it was seeing how many people died, and I was like, good God, like this is crazy. And it was just sad. And it was literally like pinned on my computer. I don't know why.
Why?
I don't know. Like, I just like, there was some reason that I was like looking at it. I think we were talking about something, but yeah, like I remember being really sad. But like I said earlier with Sophia, with Sophia, but also with Lima and Natalie, I was talking to them about how like Pi Day got canceled at our school, and I was like crushed because I like memorized 300 digits and it was like a big event, and I was like, bro, I really wanted to do Pi Day. Like that's why part of the reason why I was so crushed to not go back to school. But then learning we were never going back to finish off the year, and how many 5th grade like events we were missing.
We missed the picnic, we missed the DC trip.
We were going to Philly, not DC.
Were we? I thought we were going to we would definitely go to DC because Ibrahim went to DC.
Ibrahim's your brother.
Yeah, Ibrahim is my brother. Shout out Ibrahim.
I didn't know that. I thought we were just going to Philly. But anyway, we missed everything we were supposed to do.
Ibrahim was on the second episode.
Oh yeah, that's right, he was. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Ibrahim and Ethan.
Kai. Ethan?
Yeah.
Oh, his friend.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. But I think my brother was also on it.
He was also on it.
Anyway.
That was an interesting episode. Anyway, moving on. Tangent.
Yeah, I remember being devastated. So coming back to school was really weird because I was very, very, very excited to go back into a school because I was like, thank God.
Yeah.
It's people. I get to see people because I spent a whole summer not hanging out with friends.
Anyone.
Like, it was just very weird.
We got a cat in the COVID years, actually, and I feel like that helped a lot, having something else to focus on, you know?
Yeah. I didn't get anything in COVID year. Like, we didn't do anything. But
yeah,
it was weird. But coming back was definitely a unique experience because you saw people, but you met a lot of new people. But, like, you weren't meeting as many people as you were supposed to be meeting.
Yeah.
Because, we have teams. So at the middle school, like, they break up our grade into, like, teams so that each team has like 2 to 3 teachers, and like some of those teachers would teach 1 to 2 subjects, and you would just be stuck with those kids.
Yeah.
Like for the entire year on your team, you wouldn't really see the kids from the other teams unless you like ate lunch with them. But
Right.
even lunch was a weird experience because we would have 2 people to a table. We were eating in a gym. It was spaced out. It was just so weird.
It was very far apart.
And it was like,
and everyone was wearing masks.
Yes, and that was weird, and like wearing a mask was weird. It was, I don't know, it was just crazy. Like I remember, and now when I look back at 6th grade, I'm like, it was like a fever dream. Like
it was like a fever dream. I mean, so many people I feel like still haven't gotten past the social anxiety that stemmed from that COVID isolation period.
And a lot of people developed like germophobia, like fear of like getting sick and stuff, because like COVID was so huge with that it's like you learning that your immune system could be compromised by something else was just like nerve-wracking.
I feel like one of the good things about COVID is that it did help widespread like hygiene.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I feel like the ability for people to go out and wear masks when they're sick is good. The fact that we're a lot more cleanliness as a whole, as a people, is much better now, I think, more than ever.
And it definitely put an emphasis on like vaccinations and all of those things, and like staying safe, herd immunity, all those different types of things. But I think also, like, we can talk about like mentally during COVID while we were isolated. Like, I remember like having a TikTok phase, except I didn't have TikTok, but I would learn the dances off of YouTube.
Or there's Musical.ly too.
Yeah, but Musical.ly was kind of dying by the time COVID hit. I remember TikTok getting popular
during COVID.
In fourth grade. 4th and 5th grade, like that's when it got popular, and then TikTok just exploded once
COVID hit.
Like that's when it was no longer a joke.
Right.
Like TikTok was slowly gaining popularity 4th and 5th grade for us, but before that, it was Musical.ly, and I remember being like, oh, I want Musical.ly, whatever. Like even though I didn't have like anything that could actually have it, but yeah, like it exploded. So I remember learning TikTok dances as a way to kind of like move my body, and hearing songs from like 2020 and like the TikTok sounds.
It brings you back.
Yeah, but it's like weird because I like remember like being in my kitchen like dancing to them, but like it'd be warm. Like I remember like because like the sun would shine through the kitchen window, it'd be like really warm. It was just such an odd period.
It was. I mean, we were at home all day. For months we all had cabin fever.
I wasn't doing anything, bro. I was doing nothing. Like I barely did any of my schoolwork too, and I don't even think it affected me that much because no one really knew how to grade assignments, how to assign things. Like I don't think I did any of my specials like our art, music, library, gym work. Like I don't think I did any of that because I didn't even think I had to do it, and it was so weird.
Even coming back to school after that period, coming back to 6th grade kind of was a struggle, not knowing how to get back into that like work period where like you're supposed to be doing work, but you just don't, you're so used to doing
stunted
nothing.
Our productivity, like our maturation in productivity. Like
our emotional maturation grew exponentially, but when it comes to productivity, like you're saying, I think it stayed the same.
Our attention spans also died.
Yes, immediately, because we had to like entertain ourselves so much while we were on our own. And so we were going through things one after another, and not really
TikTok,
exactly,
like, literally like 3-second videos, like, and like those hits of dopamine. So like that combined with like not doing work and kind of just rotting at home for months on end, coming back and like the shift into now, I bet going into high school was way worse.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how the high school operated and how they assigned things during COVID and after that, and like if they ramped it up to the same level it's, at now, or if they like, eased back into it. But I feel like
I know people took AP tests online. I think I heard someone say that, but I don't know if that's true or not.
I feel like that's probably true because I don't think they would have wanted to do on paper.
Yeah.
But also like, not just that, but also like, I know like the work you get going to middle school from elementary school, it definitely increased. Whether or not it was bad, but
I think it transitioned. Oh, sorry.
Well, no,
Just to go back to the AP testing, I think it transitioned from a paper format to an online format during COVID.
Yeah.
Continue what you're saying.
But honestly, like, I think, like, that increased workload, like, it definitely changed. So I think it was a shock to our system anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't as it wasn't as severe because we were still kind of trying to get back to, like, how do we teach class?
Yeah.
How do we work Google Meet? How do we work Zoom? How do we assign these things? So, like, I think we didn't feel as big of a shock. Like, we were definitely eased back into it a lot better than probably some of the high schoolers were.
For sure.
But there was definitely that, like, oh, I don't want to be doing anything right now.
Yeah. Like, I just want to, like, sit and watch YouTube. I feel like that's what I did during 6th grade. I watched a lot of YouTube instead of doing my work.
Me too. And I think that's just, like, I think COVID furthered that technology problem for us and made it harder. It was just such a weird period. Like, and I know Wema said, like, oh, she did a lot of, like, emotional growth during that time. And she, like, came to terms with it. I went backwards.
I also went backwards, I think. Not wholly backwards, but I feel like I was already a little insecure in 5th grade. But I feel like the insecurity kind of just grew in that isolation period.
COVID stunted a lot of things for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I didn't get to further some of my skills in certain things. And so coming back, I, like, felt really weird about it. And I know it was just so odd because I'll give, for example, like, my violin, like, I was doing great in 4th and 5th grade, but I didn't have a teacher and it was elementary school. And then coming into middle school, like, Parkland definitely gives you a jump.
Right.
So it was, like, really weird to me. I was like, oh my God, wait, I got to practice. And then, like, my self-esteem just plummeted from that. But even during COVID, when we were still isolated, like, I didn't really feel like I had anything to do. I had a purpose or anything. And it wasn't, I don't even know what I did to fill my time. Like, what was I doing? I think I slept, like, all the time.
I don't know if it was earlier than COVID or before COVID. I felt like I took naps, but even then, like, I can't even remember what happened. I felt like nothing happened.
I think the, like, only thing I did would be, like, the TikTok dances. I don't even know what I was doing.
I know we did a lot of TikTok dances too. And we got a cat. That's, like I said before, I feel like and seeing pictures from that time doesn't even jump my memory, which I feel like pictures usually jump my memory.
I don't even know if I have pictures.
I have one of my cat in my lap, and I think that's the only one I can remember.
But I don't even know if my parents have pictures.
Really?
I think the only thing that I really do remember was, like, that was, like, the years that I was, like, growing my hair out to donate to cancer.
Okay.
Because I guess COVID really helped. Like, it was a really good time because you couldn't get your hair cut. So I just kept growing and growing. And I think I think it was definitely Easter of, like, 5th grade. Like, there's a picture of me and my hair looks really long in it.
Really?
Like, I just remember looking at that picture and being like, whoa, my hair looks really long. Because I ended up cutting it off to get a bob.
I remember that.
But I also had a pink streak in my hair.
I do not remember that.
I got a hair extension.
Okay.
Like, put in my hair, it was pink for cancer because at the place that I got my hair cut, like, if you got it cut in October or on some specific day, like, they would put it in there if you wanted it. And I think I got it again when I cut my hair again in 6th grade, but I definitely got it in 5th grade because I remember it was bright pink. And low-key, it was kind of cool, and I kind of wanted it again. But that was, like, the only, like, real memory I have of, like, doing something significant or, like, any picture I could think of. But I don't even know what we did for Easter that year. I don't know what we did for anything.
I feel like everything was just bland.
That's why I said it feels like a fever dream, because I'm like, I can't even remember what I was doing.
So how has COVID affected you now, then?
I think it pushed me, well, because I said it so negatively affected my mental health. I think it created, like, problems later on that I had to learn how to deal with. And, like, the close friends that I had helped me get through it. And then I was like, okay. But then, like I said, like, that stunting period and, like, just, like, violin or, like, academics or any of that, like, coming back and then seeing other people do really well still and then being like, why aren't I doing that? Or, like, people got really good at things in COVID and I just felt like, again, like, I did nothing. And I was like, what was I doing with my life?
I feel like I didn't do anything during COVID, and seeing people, again, like you said, getting really good at something kind of, like, hurt a little bit, you know?
Or just finding a hobby. And I was like, I don't think I found anything during COVID. Like, because I still like liked to bake, and maybe that's something I did was I baked more. But I already liked to bake prior to COVID, so it's like I don't feel like I gained anything. But I just felt like I think part of the reason why it was so negatively affecting it wasn't even because like I went backwards in a skill. It was just I stayed flat. Like
Yeah.
nothing changed. It kind of felt like my universe was at a standstill, and it was like everything was just stopped and I was just moving, and it was kind of weird for me. And I really didn't like that. And so coming out of that, when the world like quote started moving again, all of a sudden it felt like it jumped forward. It's not even like it restarted at the time it like paused. It like all of a sudden it was like
time passed, but I didn't move.
Yeah, like time passed, I didn't move, or my time like paused, and all of a sudden it restarted at some random point. I'm like, I'm not at this level. Like, what the heck? And it just felt so weird. Like I felt so behind, and then like that on top of other like issues that I had prior to that, just kind of like, oh,
yeah,
I had a lot of personal rebuilding to do.
And I feel like we actually were able to personally rebuild by finding our support system.
Mm-hmm.
With Wima and Natalie, and even now I feel like we've been able to get back to where we could have been.
Yes.
Not fully, but I feel like we've been able to start to get there.
Yeah.
I've been talking to my mom a lot about this, where I feel like I have been a lot more social than I've ever been in my entire life, genuinely, and I am so grateful that I'm able to get here. And I think it's because of the support system I made, talking to you, talking to Wima, talking to people, helped me get there, you know?
I think I became more introverted. Like, I'm still very extroverted, but I'm now more uncomfortable in situations. And that could just be due to me being like a kid before COVID, and now coming out of COVID was, again, because it was during like that maturation period that I came out more like teenage like and more like whatever. Because I'm still very outgoing to an extent, but like I get uncomfortable in situations. I definitely became more unsure of myself. And during COVID, because I don't think I really had any like deprecating or any self-confidence issues per se prior to COVID, but coming out, I felt very self-conscious about a lot of things.
Agreed.
And so it felt really weird. And I was like, what is going on? So I don't know. Like,
I feel like those issues that we had coming out of COVID aren't nearly as much as aren't nearly as much now as they were before.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even find Natalie till eighth grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was after. Well, like we said, like I met her in eighth grade. Like end of eighth grade is when I met her.
You connected with her like when you were with your ex.
Which I think about this a lot. I don't know when we started getting really close. Like I know, like, because I would go to her for things, and I would like talk to her about problems that I'd be having, or it'd be like, because she had already been through. I don't want to say she'd been through things, but like she had already been with my ex's brother for a year when I started dating him. So like she was very familiar with their family and any like personal issues and their personalities, and she was like, hey, like, you know, if you ever need anything, I'm here. Like the first time I remember talking to her, she was like very nice, very sweet, and we talked a lot, and she was like, I really liked her as a person, like, but it was like all over text, but we connected really well. But also like she was like, our relationship and our friendship kind of founded from like talking about things, and then I think eventually when we would talk about like their family and family dynamics, we started texting each other more for like other stuff.
Right. Agreed. I feel like Wima and I connected in eighth grade similarly, but we didn't really start to get close until high school.
Yes.
We were going through the same struggles and the same problems. We were really able to just like, click.
But I had a close friend prior to Natalie, and she helped me through
really
she was the one who helped me through 90% of my problems that came out of COVID. But she would be the one who she would pull me out of like spiraling moments or anxiety attacks or whatever, because she had
Aw.
very similar experiences to me that she was kind of already growing through and had already got through. So she was really there for me, and we were very, very, very close. We actually weren't just stopped being close last year as a result of my breakup and just like the way I was handling it. She didn't like it, and she had some qualms about how I was acting, which we're okay now, but we're definitely not as close. And I think that breakup pushed me to be closer to Natalie. And I was already slowly getting closer to her because we just started talking more often. And then I ended up being around her more because Natalie didn't go to the same middle school I did. So in middle school, we didn't get close, or when I was in middle school. And then high school, when we were both in high school, is when we both started getting close because I would actually see her and I would like talk to her more.
Right. And then did your parents, being therapists and psychologists, have any impact on your COVID years and how you like helped yourself get out of it?
I don't even know, because I think they've just like always been there, but I don't think they knew a lot about what I was going through
At the time?
Yeah, and I don't even think I did either, so it wasn't like I could, because like I wasn't mature enough to know. Like I knew emotionally what was happening, but I don't think I was mature enough to vocalize it or know how to vocalize it until later on I didn't really feel comfortable to vocalize it because I was like kind of relying on other people. So they've affected how I've like viewed life and like matured myself and been able to come to terms with certain things and my own personal growth. Like they've definitely affected it, but I don't think they like specifically during COVID, I would say like no, because I don't think I was really aware enough of what was going on myself to kind of like ask for help or say anything.
Absolutely.
So basically, I think to wrap it up, I hope that our stories kind of gave you some insight and maybe kind of affirm some of the things that you went through while going like throughout COVID, especially with our own experiences as like teens or like developing teens.
Yeah, and COVID's after effects on our mental health and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so that wraps up Brittle Honesty. Thank you so much for listening to this episode.
I hope you'll join us next week on
Sip and Spill.